Well, a pleasant Sunday evening to you wherever you may be. You're on the Dodger Game channel, and I'm going to be responding to criticism from the Jedimormon. Jedi has attacked the credibility of what I have said regarding Joseph Smith's many lady friends. Here's a group here. Look at all these girls. Yeah, some of them are kind of young. These are just women that are pretending they were the consorts of Joseph Smith. probably on a little adventure to like a Manti pageant or something like that. But they probably will reference a website called The Wives of Joseph Smith. I believe it's .org. Which is a pretty interesting site. I stumbled upon it a number of years ago and found out Joseph Smith was involved with other men's wives. About close to a dozen of them at least that are mentioned there, which the church supposedly says were sealed to Joseph Smith. I think about 11 is what they admit to. But they call it, marriage. Even though there's no legal possibility of there being a marriage because every state he lived in had anti-bigamy laws, so he was actually never married to these women. So let's see what the Jedi's got to say here. He's trying to discredit one of our videos here. So going into the YouTube channel, hitting notifications, and there's the Jedi. Says Jedi commented, Dodger Game, apt title, by the way. He's probably said that so many times I quit counting. The spiritual wife system in Nauvoo was much wilder than the sanitized version found on LDS.org and in church manuals and Sunday school classes. Yep, that's what I said, Jedi. Wait a minute. Okay, so more. I guess we're going to have to okay, I navigated through that. Okay, so anyway, so Jedi quotes me saying, the spiritual wife system in Nauvoo was much wilder than the sanitized version found on LDS.org and in the church manuals and Sunday school classes. That is right, Jedi. So, here's what he has to say. Falsehoods like this happen when the anti-Mormonism types, so he starts off calling me a liar and doing some name calling here, trying to categorize in a way that sounds negative to discredit. Like this happen when the anti-Mormonism types don't do honest research. Sorry, Jedi, I've done quite a bit of research over many years. Continues Jedi, I personally don't care how many wives Joseph Smith had. Well, guess what, Jedi? No one personally cares what you think either. Either you have fact to present or you're going to give us what you personally think. My concern, says Jedi, is how many he had sexual intercourse with. In the case of Joseph Smith, that number was 1. His first wife, Emma. No one has yet to prove differently, Mr. Dodger included. Despite gaming, pun intended. Oh, that was very funny, Jedi. I've explained numerous times Dodger Game refers to the LA Dodgers baseball team for my handle, but he just refuses to acknowledge that and always tries to make something out of it to make fun of me. Efforts of folks like Dodger having more than one wife served a good purpose, taking care of the extra families. Oh, extra families. Joseph Smith was taking care of extra families. He's insinuating here, isn't he? And before a man could take on an extra wife and kids, he had to prove that he had the means to support them. Something the anti-Mormonism types conveniently don't tell anybody. Or maybe they just don't know about that stipulation. Either way, It's dishonesty on their part. Okay, so I guess I haven't seen that one in the Doctrine and Covenants. Who was it that Joseph Smith proved he could take care of these extra women with? And how did he do it? He scarcely did an honest day's work after he published the Book of Mormon. So how was it he was taking care of them? By ripping off people, telling them they had to pay tithes? Well, let's start with this. So he was taking care of extra families. All right, so whose extra family was he taking care of in the case of Fanny Alger? 16-year-old orphan girl. Maybe she wasn't an orphan. I've read orphan, but I've read that she essentially was just their nanny. And her parents had, she was out earning her keep, trying to save some money or something. 16 years old when Emma Smith, Joseph's wife, caught them doing the transaction in the barn, as the words are given by, I believe, William McClellan, an apostle, who said this is what Emma told him. Let's take a look at some of what we've got on that. She's 16 years old, so what family was he taking care of? Because we know that Emma threw Fanny out of the house when she was noticeably pregnant. We've also read faithful disciples of Joseph Smith saying things like Fanny was unable to continue to conceal the results of her celestial relationship or relations with the prophet. Sure, Joseph Smith had a revelation, huh? This was 1833, long before any revelations of any kind, including sealing of any type, much less anything to do with marriage. What are we talking about wives here for anyway, may I ask? Joseph could not marry any of these women. It's completely illegal. Okay, there were laws against it in his state. So what kind of a marriage is that? Secondly, where's the commandment from God? Is someone talking about section 132? According to Joseph Smith, till the day he died, it didn't exist. He lied publicly, made public statements saying that no such thing had existed. And he was not involved with other women. So according to Joseph Smith, there is no section 132. He had the paper press destroyed when William Law printed that it did exist. So Joseph Smith lied about it continuously, which means it wouldn't be accepted by presenting it to the church or the Quorum of the 12 and the First Presidency or any such thing. So none of the types of things that Jedi seems to think we need to have for something to be official doctrine seem to be none of these procedures seem to have been in effect with 132, much less the prophet lying about it. So, oh, this was Emily Partridge I was looking at here. Yeah, so, I mean, she's next. I wanted to get to her next. I mean, Joseph wanted to get to her first, or next, but what I'm talking about is I wanted to see what we had to say about Fanny Alger here. So, got an article here giving us some background information and documentation that somebody placed on Reddit. And so we're going to go to the negative colors here so that it'll be easier for me to read this. Fanny left Kirtland and went to Indiana in 1834. She gave birth to a baby boy that she named Orison Smith, because Joseph knocked her up when she's 16. And it doesn't sound like he was taking care of her or their child, does it? On LDS Family Search, Orison's father is listed as Joseph Smith. As far as we know, Orison never met Joseph, and Fanny and Joseph never saw each other again. Fanny later married Solomon Custer in 1838 in Indiana. Orison was about 4. So much for child support. Joseph knocks up the maid, teenager. His wife throws her out on the street pregnant. and she gives birth in another state, and another man helps support and raise Joseph's illegitimate little bastard child. Hey! Praise Jesus! Holy is the name of the Lord for revealing these things 10 years before any revelations are even listed as given on the subject. So who did Joseph Smith prove he could support an extra child here, and concubine? And how did he marry her legally? And why was she pregnant and left and thrown out on the street if this is all God's plan? And why was this 10 years before the revelation is listed as given? And why did Joseph Smith lie the rest of his life and say he never had such a revelation? Which Doctrine and Covenants shows as 1843, not 1833. Interesting questions. Let's keep going. I've heard it alleged that genetic testing on Orison's descendants is inconclusive, but those allegations have been made on forums, so apply your own validity filter. Okay, so anyway, somebody's just kind of going on about this. It's pretty well known that a lot of people commented on the affair that Joseph Smith had with Fanny Alger. It was well known. His cousin Oliver Cowdery called it a dirty, nasty, filthy affair that Joseph Smith carried on with Fanny Alger, and he wound up in disfavor with Joseph Smith and eventually was excommunicated. David Whitmer felt the same way about it. These guys didn't agree with Joseph Smith's adultery, and making up, revelations later on and trying to make this look like it's some kind of legitimate thing. It's completely illegal. It's ridiculous. All right, let's look at the next one. Yeah, I like the quote where it says she could no longer conceal her results of her celestial relations with the prophet. But I didn't take a great deal of time to look up a bunch of info on this. Okay, someone else says, I think the source of Emma throwing Fanny Alger out was because she could no longer conceal a pregnancy is Chauncey Webb from Hale's Joseph Smith's Polygamy. Okay, a book. There is no record that Fanny had a child, says this person, but Chauncey Webb intimated that Emma became aware of the union because of Fanny's pregnancy. According to a second-hand report, Chauncey told an interviewer in Kirtland Joseph was sealed there secretly to Fanny Alger, and Emma was furious and drove the girl, who was unable to conceal the consequences of her celestial relation with the prophet, out of the house. So that's God's plan for taking care of people, Jedi. All right. Let's continue here. No, let's stay on puffing. I got more here. Emily Dow Partridge. Now, this was another teenage girl. Two Partridge sisters, daughters of the presiding bishop of the church, wound up at Joe's house, in his mansion house that had lots of bedrooms. So each of the Partridge girls apparently got taught the secret doctrine by Joseph Smith of celestial marriage. And they were mutually unaware of each other being married to Joseph Smith, who taught them these things secretly and told them they had to keep a secret. Yeah. Emma got wise to what was going on and kicked the girls out eventually. Yeah, that's right. So Joseph had been trying to tell. He couldn't. They live in the same house, but he didn't have an opportunity to teach her this special doctrine for a while. Said he wanted to tell her something. there wasn't so much secrecy involved, hiding it from his wife, it would have been a lot easier. They could have just talked about it at the dinner table. So she said this went on for a few months, and then finally, she was really worried that she'd offended God or something by not listening to Joseph Smith. So he taught her about it, and they had a ceremony. I think Heber Kimball was presiding over it as I'm cruising through here. And so in the Temple Lot law case, she was under oath and was questioned, and she'd always been very secretive or modest about the relationship, but she was asked point blank under oath, did you have carnal intercourse with Joseph Smith? And she said to the lawyer, yes, sir. He questioned her as to if they did anything like that before the ceremony, and she said no, it was only after the ceremony. So, carnal intercourse. So, they didn't have like a rape test kit there to please the Jedi or Brian Hales, but, Joseph Smith from beginning to end was nothing but a predator and a huckster, and I wonder if he ever said anything that was true in his entire life when he get done reading all the garbage that he lied about to people. So there she was, a 19-year-old. Her dad was presiding bishop of the church, but she got invited with her sister to live in the mansion house where Joseph taught her his special secrets that she wasn't allowed to tell anybody, but she did reveal under oath. And once again, Emma kicked the girls out because, she just wasn't that hot about her wife having sex with these other girls. Now, Brian Hales likes to push the narrative that there's some wonderful reason for all this, dynastic sealings and trash like that, that it was something besides Joseph Smith's preying upon these girls, and other men's wives. But we must remember that when Joseph Smith married Emma, that would have been a legal contract, supposedly a holy covenant, even though it's just a Gentile marriage, in which they are pledging certain terms to the contract that they would keep, which would be that they would have a mutually exclusive marital relationship, which means no, you can't be swingers, you can't be marrying other people, because it violates the terms of your legally binding contract. So if you believe that Joseph Smith had this revelation, which he said he never had, then you believe that God told him to break the terms of the contract of marriage, which supposedly God is saying in section 132 are legally binding and are recognized by him until death do them part. So there's absolutely no excuse for Joseph's infidelity. It's adultery. Whether God told him to commit adultery or not, it really doesn't matter. God obviously has no integrity, and neither did Joseph Smith, and apparently neither does Jedimormon. That'll do it. Dodger Game out.